She married young, bought into the traditional stay at home mom fantasy, and ignored every red flag about her husband and her circumstances because she thought it was what she was supposed to do. Now, she is drowning in the reality of this unfulfillingness of it all. What happens when a lifetime of choices, societal expectations, and personal regrets collide? Today's story is a raw, unfiltered look into the life of a woman who's grappling with envy, lost dreams, and the weight of choices she made under societal conditioning. It's not pretty, but it's painfully relatable. And as always, we're here to unpack it with insight, honesty, and maybe even a little humor because if we can't laugh a little at the absurdity of life, then what are we even doing? And then they told us what it means to be a woman, how to speak, how to shrink, how to sacrifice, how to endure. But what if we unlearned it all? Welcome to Womanhood Unbound. I'm Moira, and here we challenge the script. We go beyond the conditioning, beyond the expectations, to redefine womanhood on our terms. Your truths, your voice, your choices, your life. This is where we question and unlearn. Here, we rewrite the rules, one conversation at a time. I cannot begin to describe how fucking jealous I am of my cousin. Throwaway because I'm 26 female, super ashamed of what I'm about to type, and because I feel it's some sort of karma for being very close minded towards my cousin. And she knows damn well how much I envy her. Me and my husband have three kids, eight male, six female, and one male. Husband is 29. We live in a small country in Europe. First off, I want to say my first pregnancy completely fucking wrecked my body, and I used to be fucking beautiful. But I already started looking 30 at 20 and was oblivious to it. My husband is from a traditional family and has traditional family values. I always thought, or maybe I pretended, or was conditioned into it, I don't even know. I have the same views as him. Also, it's worth mentioning I'm a stay at home mom. We live on €2,300 a month, which can give you an extremely comfortable life if you're childless or have one kid. We never took any vacations abroad, which I've always wanted to do. Our honeymoon was in my husband's fucking parents' house on the coast, and it was hell, to be honest. My in laws don't respect me at all, and I'm just starting to realize it. I don't know why, but I thought I liked it at the time and used to glamorize my life. I thought about divorcing him, but I have no experience, and the job market in our country is the worst. Now, about my cousin, 22 female, who I literally stalk at this point. When we were younger, I always looked down on her and has a borderline superiority complex over her because she dreamed big and had extremely specific things in her mind for herself. For example, her dad, my uncle, took her to Hong Kong and other big cities abroad every year for his business trips, and she always used to say one day she'll be a flight attendant and earn money to buy an apartment in Hong Kong. I vividly remember when she said that on a family function when she was 16 and I was 20 and got married to my husband. I laughed into her face then. Mm. Fast forward to now. She achieved everything she wanted and more, and she's absolutely stunning and full of life. Her eyes are literally full of happiness. She did become a flight attendant, even though she has a business degree too. Her and her fiance have been together for 2 years. For those 2 years, she's been showered with gifts, goes to expensive restaurants whenever she fucking wants, goes on date goes on dates at least 2 times a week. Needless to say, me and my husband don't go on dates at all. Our last date was for our anniversary, and I had to cook the food while my youngest daughter was crying and screaming. Oh dear. She came to our country this summer, and we all went to her parents' house. And my God, you could fucking tell she was happy to see me in the place I'm in, right? I shouldn't be laughing. I get it. I was unnecessarily rude to her when we were younger and tried to discourage her. But was it seriously bad enough for me to get this fate? Worst thing was when my husband told her, just wait till you have kids, you won't be so glamorous and you'll sag up like my name. To which she said her and her fiance don't plan to get pregnant and they'll get a surrogate. She said it so proudly, it was like a slap to my face. I felt like fucking screaming. My husband always had something rude to say when anyone mentioned her, like calling her a hedonist or spoiled. And to be honest, I would always nod my head when he insulted her. I'm a fucking idiot. I shouldn't have judged her, and I shouldn't have ever laughed at her during the fucking dinner 6 years ago. I made very close minded comments that were borderline racist about her fiance too when she announced him as her boyfriend to us too. I've made mistakes, but was I that fucking horrible to deserve this? I love my children, but if I could do it again with knowledge that I have now, I would never. Mostly because of the pregnancies. My first pregnancy was incredibly difficult, and postpartum depression, which my husband doesn't believe in, was even worse. My husband wanted more children, so he convinced me it will work and I'll bounce back. I'm laughing while holding back tears as I type this. I mostly miss the social life I had and my old body I had. It would be good if my husband sometimes looked after the kids too, but I don't even mind taking care of them so much because I truly love them. I don't think I would be regretful, only if I hadn't deluded myself into this traditional stay at home fantasy that doesn't exist. What the fuck do I even do at this point? I don't know how I'll manage this for the next 20 something years. Usually, most people here that I assume live in America or Eastern countries are done after 18 years and their kids are off to uni. But here, it's normal for kids to live with their parents until they're 30. Even if mine chose to leave after they're done with uni, that's still 20 more years of repetitive, depressed days. Why the fuck did I do this? Let's start with the obvious. This woman's story is dripping in societal conditioning. She married young, bought into the traditional stay at home mom fantasy, and ignored every red flag about her husband and her circumstances because she thought that it was what she was supposed to do. Sound familiar? Society loves to sell women those neat little packages: marry young, have kids, stay home, and everything will magically work out, except it often doesn't. Many times, the marriage is directed at women because men know that when women get the opportunity to live life on their own terms, unbridled by a man and children, women immediately see the traditional settling down narrative is a scam. It traps women before they get to know themselves well enough to make informed, self preserving decisions. Meanwhile, men are consistently making decisions from a self preservation mindset, while women are taught to make decisions from a self sacrifice mindset. And that's how we women lose our identity. From the sounds of it, she bought into the self sacrificial traditional stay at home mom ideology. We see this in how she talks about glamorizing her life early on, and that's how they get you. And honestly, who hasn't done that? We all want to believe we're living the dream, even when the reality is not so dreamy. But here's the mind awakening moment. She's realizing now that years later that she was never living her dream, she was living someone else's expectation. And that kind of epiphany bites harder than a teething baby suckling at her mother's breast. And then there comes the cousin. Ah, the cousin, the beautiful, glamorous, globe-trotting cousin with the loaded fiance and zero plans to sacrifice her body for the pregnancy experience. It's clear cousin didn't buy into the fantasy of glamorizing pregnancy. She's clear on the toll it takes on a woman's body. She is also clear on how risky it can be, and she's smart enough to say, no, thank you. Cousin Hong Kong Dream Life is living her best life, and every time our OP looks at her, she sees everything she thinks she could have been if she'd chosen differently. But would she? I don't think so, because based on how she describes her thinking, she would have had a differentish life, but not Hong Kong cousin level of dream life. Why? Because their dreams were worlds apart. She says so herself. Her cousin used to dream big and she would laugh at her. So here we are, current lifestyles worlds apart, and she is greener than an artificial turf. Here's the thing about envy, it's less about what other people have, but more about what we feel we're missing. Her cousin isn't the villain here, she's a mirror, a shiny, perfectly lit mirror that forces OP to confront her choices, her sacrifices, and her pain, her cruelty towards her cousin, and her closed mindedness and racism towards her cousin's fiance. And honestly, mirrors like that can really be brutal. Also, can we just talk about the cousin's level of confidence and nonchalance? She's just out here saying, we'll get a surrogate. Like it's the same as ordering takeaway. Honestly, you've got to respect how she's set her life up for such ease. I can almost hear some say, but surrogacy is this and surrogacy is that. Hey, if you can't legally have or pay a surrogate in your country, you can't. And in the end, don't hate on those that can. Your envy, disguised in social consciousness, is showing. Now, about OP's husband, the walking red flag, because, ew, he's from a traditional family, convinced her to have multiple kids, and despite her struggles, doesn't believe in postpartum depression and dismisses her cousin as hedonistic. This man convinced his wife to accept less than the bare minimum from him, and he's mad that there are men who are willing to hang the moon for their girlfriend, fiance, and wife. He doesn't want his wife getting any ideas because he's incapable of meeting those standards, and that's obvious. This man's behavior reflects a deeper issue, societal expectations around women's roles. Men like this often view their spouse as extensions of themselves, caretakers, homemakers, sex tools, and baby makers. And when women like OP begin to realize their own needs and desires, men like this double down on the dismissiveness to maintain control. Here's what I want to remind women, especially those with internalized misogyny as standard and those in religious spaces. Your worth is not tied to how much you sacrifice for others. It's not tied to how many kids you have, how clean your house is, how much you avail yourself sexually, how much you submit and let him lead, or how well you hide your depression behind a smile. Your worth is in whether or not you love yourself enough to make enough choices and decisions that give you autonomy, choice, and freedom to live your life on your terms. I say this because your regret is palpable, and it's layered regret for judging your cousin for marrying young, for being in a fantasy that all you had to do to be happy was to make yourself attractive for a man, for him to pick you, marry him, have children, and serve the man and your children, and your happiness will just manifest. But it didn't. Instead, what is evident is losing yourself in the process. Now, here you're not swimming in happiness, but you're drowning in unfulfillment. But here's the thing about regret, it can either be a dead end that keeps you stuck, festering in bitterness, or you can look around for an exit and make it a starting point for a new direction where each step is filled with awareness and informed choices. So, what can she do now? She mentions feeling trapped by 20 or more years of life like this. But let's break it down. Change doesn't happen all at once, it starts with one small, deliberate step. First, you could stop talking as if your current situation is your cousin's fault. You could also stop thinking that your circumstances are a karmic dumpster truck offloading in front of your yard. You could apologize to your cousin for being so unkind. You could carve out even 30 minutes a day for yourself to rediscover what makes you happy. You could explore remote working opportunities to gain financial independence. Maybe find a community because your husband clearly isn't the support system you need if you're choosing growth and expansion. Whether it's a mom's group, therapy, or even online communities, connection in the direction where we want to go is key. You could also prepare yourself for the real possibility that when you start this journey, your husband will do everything he can do to pull you down. And you'll either settle back into the discomfort and lies of traditional stay at home mom, or you'll be brave enough to divorce this man and get shared custody. If you're serious about doing something, then you'll need to get out of this loop of self pity and resentment and immediately reframe your story. Instead of saying, I'm stuck, you could say, I'm starting over. It's not easy, but it's possible. OP loves her kids, that's clear, but there's a heartbreaking line in her story. If I could do it all again, I wouldn't. That kind of honesty is essential, and it's also a reminder that love and regret can coexist. Loving your kids doesn't mean you can't mourn the life that you gave up to have them, and that doesn't make you a bad mom, it makes you human. And you can have your regrets without judging other women for choosing to be child free and regret free. So, what's the learning opportunity here for other women? It's this: don't wait until you're drowning in regret to question the path you're on. It's okay to want more. It's okay to change your mind. And it's okay to admit that you need help. Whether it's financial independence, emotional support, or just a damn vacation, start figuring out what you need and how you can get there. Because life is too short to live someone else's dream, and a lot of stay at home moms are living patriarchy's dream. Start dreaming for yourself and bring that into reality. Now, over to you. Have you ever felt trapped by the choices you made because of societal expectations? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this, please like, follow, or subscribe, depending on the platform you're watching or listening. And share with other women to remind them that life's too short to wait for someone else to give you permission to live the way you want to live. Build your own peace, create your own power, set those boundaries, reclaim your joy, and remind the world that self correction and raising standards can and do exist in the woman who thought it was too late. And that's you. And you can always redefine womanhood and joy on your terms. Till next time.